Welcome back to A Scotch and a Beer with Officer Dan. This is episode 6. Can't believe I've done this many, but hey, I'm just gonna keep on trucking. I tried to start recording this outside, and in typical New Mexico fashion, it decided to start getting really windy and rain. So maybe next time I'll do it in my backyard like I wanted to, but I'm back in the office right now. In the last episode, I was harassed by a rooster, swapped an RB25 into my S13, and proceeded to shred the gnar. In this episode, I'm going to be going over my third season of drifting, how I got into Scotch, how Whiskey Garage got its official start, my first major sponsor, my first travel event, and last but not least, how I got to be involved with Keep Drifting Fun. Buckle in, this is going to be a wild and or long ride. So kick back, relax, grab your favorite adult beverage, and join me as I regale tales of old. I am going to make this section for Scotch and a Beer very short this time because I do have a lot to talk about. So like I said, I started this outside. The ice ball's already frozen. I poured myself a nice tall one. I've refilled it already. So this is the Lagavulin 16 year. This is another Isla, so it's very peaty and smoky. This one says that it's also ambrosial. Don't know what that means, but I'm going to tell you what I think in just a second. This one tastes like a liquid campfire, sprinkled with a little bit of ashes, and then topped off with a fine layer of cinnamon. I do like this Scotch. Actually gonna pour some more in there because those were some big sips. The beer that I'm gonna go with today is Trader Jose's Dark Lager. Let's give this Trader Jose a try. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. It kind of reminds me of the Dark Modelo. Alright, so that was that. Knock that out of the way. Let's get right into story time. Speaking of whiskey related things, I got turned on to Scotch by force. I don't like the taste of alcohol. That alcohol poisoning that I got when I was a Ute really messed me up for the rest of my adult life. I still don't like the taste of alcohol. Can't do vodka, can't do gin, can kind of take rum and tequila, but no other grain alcohols or even bourbon. It really, really messes with me and I just want to puke immediately. Sorry if that disappoints some of you, but Scotch is really the only hard alcohol I can drink. What I did like, however, was margaritas and ciders. Anything with a crap ton of sugar in it. So it's late 2009, the season's over. It's just now starting to snow in Durango. It's about October, kind of Halloweenish, and I head up to go snowboarding with a couple of buddies of mine that live out there, Brian Campbell and Mark Pevney, two super good dudes. Brian is a really good snowboarder and a BMXer that I knew from way back in the day, and he lived with a guy named Mark Pevney. Anyway, we shred the gnar all day, we had downtown Durango, and we end up at a place that Mark works at called The Office. It's kind of an upscale bar, lots of old lawyer books, many leather-bound books. It's got a really cool vibe. It's based inside of a hotel that was part of the Prohibition era that has all these hidden compartments everywhere called Strater. We're in there and Mark makes these margaritas called a margarita. Clever, I know. Mark pours one of these drinks, I drink it, and it is like magic in my mouth. I fall in love immediately. Finish the first one, everybody's in the bar, we're sitting there, we're laughing, we're having a good time. Turns out the owner of the bar was I was sitting at a corner like this. The owner of the bar was here and I was here. And I asked Mark for another margarita because it was one of the best things I'd ever had in my mouth. Mark pours me a big tall margarita. The owner of the bar intercepts and dumps that thing into the drain, and immediately my vibe is killed. And I'm like, dude, A, that sucks. B, that sucks. And C, what the shit, man? Basically, he told me I needed to man up, quit drinking girly drinks, and he made Mark pour me a Glenlivet 12 year on the rocks, and he set it down in front of me, and I was like, I hate alcohol, this sucks. The owner of the bar, whose name I can't remember at this time, basically told me that I needed to finish this drink that he'd put in front of me or I couldn't leave his bar. And I was like, God damn it, this sucks. Hate hard alcohol. He also says you can't shoot it or I'll punch you in the throat. And I'm like, dude, why did this have to turn violent? Not only did you kill my vibe, but you harshed my mellow. Anyway, I should have thanked him for this, what was about to happen, but I sure as hell hated him at the time. I even hated him after that. So, I choke down the Scotch. I cannot stand it. It is disgusting. I'm trying not to throw up. I finish it and we leave. I don't want to do that ever again. That was gross. I just wanted to drink my margarita and laugh in peace. Now, I wouldn't try another Scotch on my own for another couple of months. I went back to Albuquerque, did my thing, and on another trip up to Durango to do some shredding of the gnar, I met up with Mark and Brian again, and we rode again, and we went to a different bar this time, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it another try. So I ordered myself a Scotch, and that's all I said. I said, give me a Scotch. And the guy gave me this weird, like, nod, wink type thing, and I was like, I don't even know what just happened. It was like I was part of some secret society. Okay. Now that was weird, I thought, but whatever, that's cool. So anyway, he serves me up Johnnie Walker Blue Label. And Johnnie Walker is a blended Scotch, which means they take it from all different distilleries and they average the years together to come up with whatever their classification system is. So he serves that up, and it's actually kind of good. It was different, smooth, tasty. I may or may not have fell in love. And right after that is kind of how I accidentally started my next brand. Once I got back to Albuquerque again, I had bought myself a bottle of Glenlivet 12 year. A bunch of buddies and I were in my garage. Pretty sure it was my buddy Jerry, my buddy Tyler. We had a wheelchair, and we were doing some freestyle wheelchairing. Don't know why. We were drinking Scotch in my garage, and as we're doing this freestyle wheelchairing, I'm like, man, this is a garage filled with whiskey. This is a whiskey garage. And I was like, huh, I wonder if I could do something with that. The next day I opened up the old Photoshop and I designed myself a JDM style sticker that looked a little bit like this. Actually, it looked a lot like this because that's the actual file that I took a screenshot of for some reason. Anyway, I made a JDM looking sticker with the JDM slogan in English and went and had 25 of those printed. I would end up handing those all out at my first drift event. So I just ended up giving them away. I was just like, all right, cool. It was a cool design. People seemed to like it. Whatever, gave them away. So that was the unofficial start of Whiskey Garage. Didn't think I was going to do shirts anymore. Didn't think I was going to do anything else other than just made that one batch of stickers in 2009, and that was it. So we're rewinding a little bit. The RB swap is in the car. I've had the most fun at events that I've had thus far. I love driving with more horsepower. I've already gotten my first event knocked out and my first tandem battle, and I'm heading into my second event. At my second event, per Zip Tide, I ended up in 4th place. And I posted up that I had spun out for no reason whatsoever, and that's why I ended up in 4th. Otherwise, I may have moved on. I don't know. That's all I put, was I spun out for no reason. So I was super pumped to win some of those football field length tandem battles because none of us had cages, but we were still doing battle. So I had won a couple of those battles, and I was pumped to be in the top 4 in the first place. The third event rolls around, and I cruise on up to the line to start to qualify. It's a night event, and I give it my all. I got my metal jamming. I am in the zone. I qualified first. First time qualifying first. Pretty good feeling. Not gonna lie, I was really pumped. And I make my way all the way down until the battle between 1 and 2. I actually ended up losing this to this guy. I think he was from Arizona. I don't know exactly where this guy was from. We did go one more time, like 3 times after this, but I lost. Anyway, I got 2nd place, first time on the podium for Officer Dan. It felt really good to get on the podium, and I got this sweet trophy. 2nd place. Sick. Cheers to that. Since things were getting serious in my own mind, it was time to man up and up my program a little bit. I sold my beloved STI. I got myself a 1999 Ford F-250 and a trailer. Now that particular Ford F-250 ran on grease, so it had a full grease setup in the bed, and that's awesome. I get to drive around for free. So once I got the truck, I actually got on Craigslist. I found somebody selling a used grease cleaning kit. And it was 2 55-gallon drums, a bunch of pumps, and anyway, eventually my neighbor would end up calling the cops on me for running a meth lab. SWAT team came. It was a big mess, but I was just cleaning grease. They all had a laugh. We high-fived. They left. I got the trailer from a dude named Andrew McGibbon. Andrew McGibbon was running the events for RSW at the racetrack. So Andrew sold me this trailer on the cheap. He was kind of becoming uninterested in drifting. and interested in road racing. He had a bunch of cool MR2s, and anyway, Andrew's a cool dude. He was just at the drift event last night. Thanks, Andrew, for that trailer, and I'm so sorry that I sold it out from under you. Andrew sold me the trailer for really cheap with one stipulation. You have to sell it back to me before anybody else. And as I get later into this story, you'll understand why I had to sell that trailer out from under him. It was kind of an emergency, and I really, really needed the money. Had to do with Formula Drift. Anyway, thank you again, Andrew, for selling me that trailer. Sorry again. So going back to the grease system on the truck, it's really awesome, and I still wish I had it. It always smelled like French fries when you were driving around was one thing, although it did make you hungry a lot. And I had sourced all my grease from a local Vietnamese food place, so I had a constant flow of free grease because they had to pay to get it taken away, so this gringo coming to get it every week was a-okay with them. Blasting through this stuff tonight. Lagavulin. Campfires. Love it. So you had to start and stop the truck on diesel, otherwise the grease would coagulate in the lines and then you'd have a whole different problem. The engine coolant heated the tank in the back, and once it was up to temperature, it automatically switched over to grease, and then it had a turbo timer that would switch back to diesel, and anyway, that's how you did it. So you would fill up a tank of diesel, and I would probably go through 2 or 3 tanks of grease before the tank of diesel would run out. If you did mileage calculations the normal way, where you divide the miles by the gallons you put in, I ended up getting around 28 miles per gallon, which is insane for a big diesel truck that includes towing. The real mileage was still the same, 10 to 11 miles a gallon, that any other diesel truck's gonna get, but since I was only buying a tank of diesel every month, it made a huge difference in my pocket. I wish I was still greasel, but I'm not. Unfortunately, that truck got stolen out of my driveway with all of my spare tires, tools, and everything else right after a drift event, but that's later on down the road. I hit a few more of the church autocross events in this sea of cones that they never stopped working with. I don't even know where they got this many cones. Doing that course with RV Power was a little bit much. It was seat time. And it was free. And if it's free, it's for me. So fast forward to the 4th and final event of 2009. This event would end up being where the term right place at the right time comes into play. And it's strange how much you actually learn this if you get into motorsports seriously. Being in the right place at the right time is 90% of the battle to get noticed and to get exposure for yourself. Anyway, won that event. First place, mother truckers. I ended up 3rd place overall for the season, but something else that was more important happened at that event. The new guy that's now managing the track says, hey, can you give this dude a ride? He's on the board of directors that owns the track. He'd really appreciate it if you tossed him in the car. I said, sure thing, no problem. Toss a helmet on him, let's do it. He introduces me to a guy named Jim Guthrie. Now, I knew nothing about Jim at the time, but Jim is a motorhead in its purest, most unadulterated form. If it goes fast, Jim is in. It also turns out that Jim drove Indy back in the day. He won the Phoenix 500. He had various suspension components go through his hip in an accident. Bottom line here is Jim is the freaking man. He also happened to own one of the most successful body shops in town called Car Crafters. Like I said, I knew none of this at the time. It was just a guy I was giving a ride to. Jim tosses on his helmet and hops in the car. We take off for our laps. We're doing big oval and small oval. It's a cool course. It's got lots of speed. Anyway, I give him a few rides. He's super pumped inside the car. I'm like, cool, this was rad. I like to make people happy. This is awesome. Feels good inside. So Jim gets out. He gives me a huge high five. Man, that was freaking awesome. And then kind of centering the camera thing on the door, he was like, I could see a Car Crafters logo right here. And I'm like, cool, I like stickers. Yeah, let's do it. I didn't even know what that meant. The next words out of his mouth were, I gotta get me one of these. Little did I know that this small exchange of words would change my drifting career forever. Now, Jim and I exchanged numbers. He asked me to come down to Car Crafters and have a meeting about the next season. And I was like, okay, cool. Just let me know when and where, and I'll be there. We ended up having a barbecue at my house, invited Jim over. Jim actually came, got to make a steak. It was good. And then we parted ways again. I think the thing that drew Jim to drifting was the camaraderie that all of us had. Like, in the pits of Indy, you don't trade parts with people. You don't talk to other teams. It's very boxed. You don't get to have fun. It's very, very serious motorsport. And when he saw drifting it was like this whole other thing where it's fun and people are high-fiving and slapping each other on the ass and good job and hey, you need a part, take a part, and discussing suspension setups and so on and so forth. So that was a complete 180 flip for Jim being in motorsports. So I ended up meeting Jim at the as of yet unopened location of Car Crafters. Still had that new body shop smell to it, if you know what I'm saying. He took me on a tour of the epic facility, and it was this huge warehouse with lifts everywhere, paint booths everywhere, and space everywhere, and oh my god, it was huge. It was amazing and it blew my mind. So after the tour, he went to Jim's office and he cut right to the freaking chase. Tell me about the upper echelons of drifting, he says. Anyway, I went into this incoherent rant about Formula Drift and what it took to get there. In my own head, I didn't actually know, and that was that conversation. Then he asked what the biggest costs of drifting were. So of course I said entry fees and tires. And he was like, all right, I'll cover one of those. And since I was still getting all my tires out of used tire piles, I was like, well, entry fees would really help. That'd save me like $700 a year. Done, he said. I was like, oh shit, well that was easy. I didn't know. This is my first time doing this. He says, let's get this one more season in. We'll meet at the end of the year and we'll talk again about what's next. I said, all right, sick. Anyway, he gave me some large stickers to put on my doors and he said, hey, we'll keep your car clean. And I was like, cool. I probably haven't washed it ever, but rad. That's cool. Entry fees and free washes. I can deal with that. WTF just happened? Did I actually just get like a money sponsor? Weird. I don't know what to do with my hands. Circling back a little bit further, mid-2009, I hated being a senior rep at T-Mobile. Like last time I explained, I got a promotion and I absolutely hated it. So I applied to be a forum moderator because I was going to quit and do something else. But I applied to be a forum moderator and I got that job, which came with another couple of $1 an hour raise, and it was a cakewalk. I just had to moderate idiots on the internet. So because of the pay raise, I was able to buy the rest of an aero kit. Now that aero kit I quickly destroyed and ended up having to zip tie back together, but I'm pretty sure that's normal. I did buy some used cut knuckles at this point. I hadn't had any angle mods at this point, so this is the first time I felt like I actually needed it. I was good enough to utilize the extra angle and dropped a couple $100 on a cut knuck set. Because being stock angle this whole time was rough. I know it cost me a couple of events because I'd spin out when the dude would out angle me. Now we're getting close to the first event and I get a phone call from Jim saying, hey, can you meet me out at the track? The local newspaper wants to do an article on drifting. And I was like, cool, yeah, let's do that. I like free track time. So we head out to the track and gets this epic freaking shot of me on fire. Now this picture ends up being the cover of the sports section of the newspaper, and I've never been in a newspaper before, so that was pretty freaking cool. I just remember it being cold AF, my car was on fire, and then it put itself out, and that was cool. It was a good day. Now RSW had announced that they were going to run 4 events in 2010, and because of Jim, I was able to prepay all of those events and get a discount. Sick. Pocketed a little extra cash. Holy shit, I thought, this is epic. I brought the car into Car Crafters right before the event, they cleaned it and gave it a fresh wax, and off I went. Boom! First event of the season, 2nd place. Sick. I'm feeling so much more comfortable in this car, and the extra angle makes it a cakewalk to drive. 2nd event, 1st place. 3rd event, 1st place. 4th event, 1st place. So I ended up 1st place overall, and more importantly, it impressed Jim. I was just happy I was able to make my only sponsor excited about my driving. That felt really good. I was proud to make Jim proud. And now, having known Jim through this season and hung out, and we'd go get lunch every once in a while, I really look up to Jim. So at the very end of that season, there was an event down south in Deming, New Mexico at a track called Arroyo Seco. It was a 2-day event, which was my first 2-day event. I'd never been to one that was 2 days before. All my events had been 1 day. So Andy Barrow and I loaded up our cars and our trucks and trailers. Andy had a sick, recently swapped V8 FDRX7 as well that was camo painted. So we both headed down to Deming, New Mexico to hit this event down there. It was a blast learning a new course. totally different ball game. They had rumble strips like this high. There was tight corners, there was long corners, there was corners that I couldn't even think about how to do. I was totally out of my element and I freaking loved it. Now they had 2 separate comps. They had one day and one the next. And I ended up getting 2nd place at both of those competitions. Pretty pumped on that. It was ultra rad meeting new drivers, learning a new course. It was a whole new ball game that I hadn't got to experience yet. And this was something that I needed in my drift life. Like, I traveled with BMX and I think that was the only thing that was missing, was just drifting in the same place all the time, was the meeting of new people and the learning of new things, and this fulfilled that hole in my heart. Traveling was now the funnest thing that I'd done so far, and I needed more in my life. It was like crack. So it's now post-season and Jim gives me a call, says, hey, let's meet back up and talk about the next season and where to go from here. Again, he cuts right to the chase. We sit down and he's like, I want a drift car. Where do I get one? Which one do I get? Etc, etc. I want to get it before next season starts. I'm like, okay, cool. You should probably get a 240. I'll get online and I'll look at some ads and compile a list for you and send them your way. And same deal for this season. Prepay your entries, clean your car. I was like, done deal. Shook hands. I took off. And then I mentioned Jim was awesome, because Jim's awesome. Anyway, I got online and I did my due research and I got Jim a big list of cars for sale in Denver, Phoenix, El Paso, Albuquerque, all really cheap cars that were in my price range because I was poor. So like a week goes by and Jim calls me and is like, I bought a drift car. And I was like, wait, what? One of the ones I sent you? And he was like, no. I got on eBay and I bought a 1994 FD RX-7 with a V8. And I was like, huh. Felt kind of useless. But anyway, Jim got a rad car on eBay and I was excited to see it. It turns out that that car was Luke Longberger's old Formula Drift car. He's like, it's gonna be here in 2 days, let's go practice. And I'm like, yeah, free track time, let's do it. So we head out to the track and I get in the car with Jim, and Jim is really struggling with donuts and figure eights, and I'm like, dude, you gotta let go of the wheel. You're not letting the car do what the car needs to do. Now, Jim is a thoroughbred race car driver. He does not want to take his hands off the wheel. He's been taught, and it's ingrained in his DNA not to take his hands off the wheel. So we're learning figure eights and donuts, and every time Jim should be taking his hands off the wheel and he's doing this feed thing, I slap his hands and he does this thing, and then the car spins out, and he's learning to let go of the wheel. Really difficult for a race car driver to learn how to let go of the steering wheel. So we went out to the track a couple of more times for lessons. He was picking it up faster than anybody that I'd ever seen, certainly way faster than I ever picked it up. And then one of the times we went out to the track, he had a steering quickener installed because he thought that that would be better, because then he could just hold the wheel and not have to ever take his hands off the wheel. And it made the car undriftable. It would spin out so fast you wouldn't even know what happened. It was like punching yourself in the face over and over and expecting something else to happen. Anyway, the next time I saw Jim, the steering quickener was promptly uninstalled from the car and it felt great again. And after our last practice session, it's officially the off season. There's a dyno day. It's $50. You get 2 dyno runs at a place called Motiva Performance. I head over there, we toss my car on the dyno, and the disappointment sets in. My car makes like 173 horsepower and my dyno graph looks like it's a contour of a mountain range. I didn't know it at this point, but the guy that was doing the dyno day, his name was Scottie Fox. He's a really, really, really good friend of mine, and I didn't know that then. But anyway, Scottie tells me that the car is unsafe and we probably shouldn't do any more runs. We do the second run and he's like, you really, really, really need to get this thing fixed. And I'm like, shit, 173 horsepower. I thought it was like 300. Anyway, Scottie tells me some suggestions to do and I go back to Andy and I'm like, Andy, we need to fix this, whatever. I can't believe that the car is only literally making 70 horsepower more than it made when it was a KA car. And I'm doing this much better. I've won the season. I'm really pumped. The car's running like absolute garbage, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Sick. Idiot. And thanks to Scottie's recommendations, Andy tuned it to whatever that was, and the car ended up making 220 US horsepowers. Like, holy shit, what a difference that made. The car was actually fast now, like scary fast to me. Ran different, it felt different, it was great. Because those old things were haggard. So February 2010 rolls around and Josh Herron makes a post on Zip Tide saying he and Will Roegge are going to tour the country filming a video called Keep Drifting Fun. It's going to be a video about grassroots drifting all across the United States, and NM was in the list, and I was like, hey, I'm from NM. I should reach out to this guy. So I said, let me know approx dates and I'll let you know about events and shenanigans. Idiot. Josh reached out. Josh said, we're going to be here from these dates to these dates. I talked to Jim Guthrie. I talked to the racetrack, and we organized some dates. And that was it. That was all. It was just a couple of direct messages on a website. Little did I know that I was going to be part of one of the most influential drift videos to ever hit the internet. It would also make me two lifelong friends, Josh and Will, that would share my passion of drifting throughout my drift career. And that is where I'm gonna end this video. Next episode will include the actual filming of the Keep Drifting Fun video with Josh, Will, and a bunch of my buddies from New Mexico, me inadvertently taking over the events for 2010, and more importantly, the filming of Motorcycle versus Car Drift Battle 1 at Sandia Motor Speedway. That video would end up sparking a revolution in motorsports media. The end of 2010 would end up with Jim and I deciding that Pro-Am would be a good idea. So stay tuned for all of those shenanigans. Anyway, this is Officer Dan with a Scotch and a beer, or 3 Scotch and a beer. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. It's gonna be a good one again. Please share this with your buds. Later.